It started with a post on a local job board.
Plain.
Unassuming. Seeking personal assistant for estate work.
Live-in.
Discretion required. Sarah Foster hadn't expected much when she clicked it. The ad didn't list a company or location, just a phone number and a note. Call only if serious. Immediate placement. And she was serious. After 3 months of unemployment and 2 maxed-out credit cards, desperation had set in.
So she called.
A woman answered. Calm, articulate, and businesslike. Sarah Foster? The voice asked before Sarah could introduce herself. She blinked.
Yes.
How did you? You've been selected. A driver will arrive tomorrow morning at 9. Pack for at least 2 weeks. The line went dead. Sarah sat frozen, the silence in her apartment suddenly heavy. There was no interview. No discussion of pay. Still, something about the voice, its sharp certainty, compelled her. She packed that night, sleep evading her as questions swirled like smoke. The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up outside her building. The driver, dressed in charcoal gray, said nothing except, "Miss Foster?" Then opened the door. They drove for hours. The city thinned into quiet hills, then into dense woods. Cell service vanished. Eventually, the car turned onto a gravel path. At the end stood an enormous stone manor, cloaked in ivy and shadows. The estate loomed like it had been forgotten by time, windows like cold, watching eyes. Still, something about it was familiar, an itch beneath Sarah's skin, like a dream she couldn't quite remember. The driver handed her a brass key and a note. Room 4B. Dinner is at 7. Do not explore. Inside, the manor smelled of cedar and age. Sarah's footsteps echoed down the vast hallways. The walls were lined with old oil paintings, portraits of men and women dressed in 19th-century finery. Their eyes seemed to follow her. She found room 4B down a narrow corridor. It was simple but elegant. Dark wood furniture, heavy velvet curtains, and a 4-poster bed. A silver tray sat on the desk with a cup of tea and another note. Rest. You will begin tomorrow. Sarah didn't remember falling asleep, but she woke hours later, disoriented. Dusk bled through the window. The manor was silent. Too silent. At dinner, she was alone. A place had been set for her at the long dining table. The meal, roast duck, potatoes, and wine, was perfectly prepared, but no one else appeared. No cook. No host. No staff. Just her. The following morning, she found another note under her door. Inventory, the West Wing.
Room by room.
Do not enter the gallery. Sarah worked in silence, documenting old furniture, books, and artifacts. Every item was tagged and cataloged, many labeled with codes and symbols she didn't understand. The rooms were cold and strangely preserved, like time had frozen them. By the 4th day, the silence had begun to gnaw at her. She hadn't seen another soul since her arrival. No footsteps. No voices. Just the occasional thump in the walls or the subtle creak of floorboards when no one else should be there. It was the 5th night when she heard it. A whisper. Soft, fragile, and unmistakably familiar. Sarah? She sat up in bed, heart hammering. The sound had come from the hallway. She opened her door and stepped out barefoot. The corridor stretched endlessly in both directions. Empty. Then she saw it, a flicker of light under a door at the end. The gallery. The one place she was told not to enter. Something pulled her toward it, some magnetic force she couldn't explain. The door creaked open as she touched it. The gallery was massive, lined with hundreds of portraits, some covered in white cloth. The air was heavier here, thick with varnish and something else decay, perhaps. As she stepped inside, a chill ran down her spine. And then she saw it. Halfway down the hall, one painting was illuminated by a single shaft of moonlight piercing through a crack in the curtains. Her breath caught. It was a woman, elegant, eyes green like hers, hair pinned up just the way her mother used to wear it. Sarah stepped closer, heart pounding louder with each step. It was her mother. Younger, yes, but unmistakably her. The same sharp cheekbones. the same birthmark near her temple. Her name was etched into the gilded plaque beneath. Catherine Foster, 1982. Her mother's maiden name. The year she was born. Sarah stumbled back, nausea swelling. Her mother had died in a car accident when Sarah was 10. Or so she'd been told. Behind her, the gallery door slammed shut. She turned, eyes wide. A voice whispered from the darkness. "You shouldn't be here." The voice echoed like a draft in a crypt, cold, breathless, and close. Sarah froze, her eyes darting across the shadows in the gallery. No footsteps. No figure. Just the whisper again, softer now. "You shouldn't have come." She turned back to the portrait. Her mother's painted eyes seemed to shimmer, as if wet with tears. The realism was disturbing, too lifelike. Sarah stepped forward again, her hand trembling as she reached for the frame. Before her fingers touched it, the lights flickered, and the portrait changed. One blink, and the colors twisted. Her mother's serene face now stared wide-eyed, mouth agape in terror. A hand, pale and gray, gripped her shoulder in the painting. Sarah stumbled back, heart hammering. Then the room went black. She fumbled for the door in the darkness, breathing fast, chest tight. The gallery felt different now. Bigger, deeper, as if the walls were shifting. She groped blindly until her fingers grazed the knob. It turned with resistance, like something was holding it shut from the other side. Then suddenly it opened. She fell into the hallway, gasping. The lights outside buzzed softly. The silence was back. Sarah bolted to her room, slammed the door, and locked it. Her thoughts raced. That wasn't just a painting. That wasn't just her imagination. That was her mother. And she was terrified. The next morning, another note awaited her on the tray. Final warning. Do not enter restricted areas. Disobedience is dangerous. No signature. No explanation. That afternoon, while cataloging an upper-floor study, Sarah found a thick leather-bound book wedged between two dusty encyclopedias. It was labeled only the collection. She cracked it open. Inside were black and white photographs of the gallery portraits. Each was numbered, with handwritten notes in the margins. Subject number 43, Henry Lowell, deceased 1902, acquired via channeling. Subject number 71, Lydia Morrow, missing since 1956, unstable. Do not display. Subject number 103, Catherine Foster, preserved perfectly. Bloodline remains active. Sarah stared at the last entry, her hands shaking. Her mother. They knew about her. About her. She flipped to the back pages, finding a hand-drawn map of the estate. A hidden basement, labeled only as Root Wing, was marked beneath the gallery. That night, she waited until the manor was completely silent. She stuffed the book into her satchel and crept from her room, following the faded map down twisting servants' corridors and narrow stairwells. The air grew colder the farther she descended. The wallpaper peeled. The lights flickered. Eventually, she reached a heavy iron door tucked behind a tapestry. The key in her pocket, the one given to her on day one, fit perfectly. The root wings smelled like soil and stone. The walls were carved directly into the earth, slick with moisture. Old gas lamps lined the tunnel, flickering dimly. Sarah walked for what felt like minutes, maybe hours. The tunnel twisted until it opened into a vast underground chamber. Rows of easels.
Dozens of them.
Each holding a portrait. But they weren't painted. Not exactly. The figures inside the frames were moving.
Subtly.
Their eyes blinked. Their expressions twitched. Some silently screamed. Trapped in oil and canvas. Sarah moved slowly between them, horrified.
She saw men.
Women.
Children.
All lifelike. All alive. Then she saw her mother's portrait again, just as it had been in the gallery. But this one breathed. Sarah leaned closer, unable to stop herself. "Mom," she whispered. The figure inside the painting slowly turned its head, eyes widening. Her lips moved. "Sarah, run." A voice boomed from behind her. Too late. Sarah spun around. The driver stood there, no longer mute and lifeless.
His face had changed.
Stretched. Elongated. His eyes glowed like smoldering coal. "You weren't meant to find this place," he said, stepping closer. "But maybe that's fate. After all, the gallery is in your blood." She backed away, gripping her satchel. "What is this place? What did you do to them?" He smiled, thin and cruel. "We preserve them. The ones who are useful. The ones whose spirits still echo loudly. Your mother was one of the strongest. So strong, in fact, that she tried to warn you, through the painting." He raised a hand. One of the portraits ignited in blue flame. "No more of that." Sarah lunged. Not away, but forward. She shoved past him, running deeper into the chamber, hoping for another way out. But the root wing was a maze. A labyrinth of twisting passages and dead ends. And behind her, the sound of footsteps multiplied. Not just the driver. Others. Dozens. They poured from the walls, silent figures in gray uniforms, their faces blank, their eyes empty. She ran until her legs burned, until her lungs begged her to stop. Then she saw it, a wooden stairwell leading upward, half-rotted but standing. She climbed. The wood groaned beneath her, threatening to snap. But she made it to a trapdoor, pushed it open, and tumbled into a dark room filled with dust and furniture covered in sheets. She was back in the West Wing, and something was different. The walls here were painted with strange symbols. Circles within circles. Red ink, or maybe blood. She stumbled to the center of the room where a large, ornate mirror stood, half-shattered. Her reflection stared back. But it wasn't quite hers. The woman in the mirror was older. Paler. Her eyes hollow. Her lips curled in a soft smile. "Sarah," the reflection said, "it's time you remembered who you are." The mirror cracked again. A voice whispered, echoing through the room. "You've come home." Sarah stumbled away from the mirror, breath ragged. The cracked glass still shimmered with her reflection, except it wasn't her anymore. That woman in the mirror looked ancient, hollowed out, like someone who had waited centuries in silence. The floor beneath her creaked. The shadows in the corners shifted. "You've come home," the voice repeated, this time closer, less a whisper and more a presence. She bolted from the room, bursting into the hallway beyond. It was no longer the manor she'd wandered for the past week. The corridors were darker, longer, their proportions twisted as if the house had swallowed itself from the inside. The portraits on the walls were all wrong, the faces distorted, mouths stitched shut or eyes gouged out, all painted in muted screams. She had to get out. She ran blindly through the endless hallways, the gallery's voice murmuring from the walls like a living thing. "You are the key. You are the door. You are the next." At the end of a long hallway, a faint orange glow pulsed beneath the door. With no other options, she opened it. Inside was a vast circular chamber, lit by a single chandelier that swayed with no breeze. The walls were covered in dozens of portraits, unfinished, blank faces waiting for features. In the center stood a canvas, and in front of it, an easel with paintbrushes already dipped in crimson. The driver stood beside it, but he was no longer in disguise. His skin rippled, peeled, revealing an ancient figure beneath, gaunt, robed, with eyes like cracks in reality. Around him, the figures from the root wing emerged silently, forming a circle. "We've waited a long time for you, Sarah," he said. "The last of the foster blood. The only one strong enough to complete the circle." Sarah took a step back, clutching the satchel where the book still hid. "My mother, what did you do to her?" she demanded. "She was powerful, resistant, but eventually she gave in. She was the first to preserve herself, willingly, so you could return one day." He gestured toward the central canvas. "She's calling you. You've heard her voice, felt her memories. The gallery remembers, and it wants you to finish what she started." "No," Sarah breathed. "I'm not part of this." "But you are. The gallery is not a place, it's a living archive, a soul vault. Your family kept it for centuries, until they tried to abandon it. Until your mother fled. But blood remembers, and the gallery always reclaims what belongs. He stepped aside.
Paint, he said.
Finish the portrait. Give the gallery what it needs, and you will see her again. The canvas shimmered, its surface pulsing with ghostly impressions. Her mother's face hovered just beneath the white. A trapped breath. A desperate plea. Sarah's hand reached for the brush before she realized it. Some part of her, deep, ancient, recognized this. This was legacy. This was sacrifice. But another part screamed to run. She spun suddenly, flinging the satchel into the circle. The book burst open, pages scattering like dead leaves. The wind howled from nowhere, and the unfinished portraits on the walls twisted, their eyes snapping open in unison. The driver thing screamed, "You dare defy your blood?" Sarah grabbed one of the fallen pages, a ritual sketch, and held it up to the chandelier's flame. "If my mother gave herself to stop this," she shouted, "then I'll finish her work." The page caught fire. The chamber exploded in wind and shrieks as the flames leapt from one canvas to another. The paintings burned, not like oil, but like flesh. The unfinished portrait screamed as fire consumed them. The chandelier shattered, and the floor cracked beneath her feet. The cultists, those soulless bodies, collapsed one by one, disintegrating into ash. Only the driver remained, his form flickering between flesh and shadow. "You were born for this," he roared, his body breaking apart with every word. "You are the archive." Sarah turned toward the main canvas. Her mother's face still shimmered just beneath the surface. She stepped forward, not to finish it, but to touch it. "Goodbye, Mom," she whispered. "I'll end this." She pressed her palm to the canvas. The chamber split open. A blast of white light engulfed everything, swallowing the portraits, the walls, the creature behind her. Screams dissolved into silence. Shadows unraveled. And for a moment, just one, Sarah felt her mother's arms around her. A whisper in her ear. "You did what I couldn't. Thank you." Then, darkness. She woke up in a hospital. Fluorescent lights. Sterile air. A nurse blinked at her in shock when she stirred. You've been missing for 9 days," the nurse whispered. Police arrived soon after. Questions flooded in. Where she'd been, how she'd survived, what happened at the estate. But when they went looking, the manor was gone. Just trees.
Dirt.
No structure. No foundation. No trace of the road she'd been driven on. They tested her. Said it was stress.
Trauma.
Hallucination. But Sarah knew better. Because weeks later, when she unpacked her bag from the hospital, she found something strange tucked at the bottom. A torn page from the collection. One final note scribbled on it in her mother's handwriting. "If they return, burn the canvas. Never paint." And behind it was a small, perfect portrait of Sarah, blinking,